my two closest colleagues in Belmont, down on the far right, Jim Drummy, who handles our news analysis, and Bill Dunham, who handles our correction please, are closest to me, as I say, in Belmont, and therefore have the best crack at my head for not giving them a chance to comment. But we're going to have we're now about 12 minutes over what we were allotted. Just to conclude our informal discussion, I'd like to go now to Frank Capell. Mr. Capell of the Herald of Freedom is a crafty fellow. He leaned back a few moments ago. You may have seen to whisper in my ear what to ask him, and he wanted me to ask him if there were still subversives in our government. And I'm not going to ask him that because I know he knows the answer. Rather, we open this with a discussion of the Pentagon Papers. I know Mr. DeBerrier is still trying to locate a copy of yesterday's New York Times for his files. So this is a very it's a hot matter. Allaire discussed some of the history of the Vietnam situation. I wonder, Frank, if you forgive me to jumping over your question, to the matter of the conspiracy behind this thing. Now, I know you don't have the whole matter worked out in detail. Nobody has that much detail on this yet. But some of these people are members of the Council on Foreign Relations, and it goes up pretty high. I wonder if you'd comment on that aspect of the Pentagon Papers.
To begin with, Mr. Ellsberg, who stole the papers from the Rand Corporation and gave them to Neil Sheehan of the Times, 2 years earlier had given a set of them to Senator William Fulbright, and he studied them privately. Now, who is this Ellsberg who has suddenly been all over the world in the press? I've just written a short memorandum on this. He's connected with the CIA in the first place. In 1961, he attended a conference of the War Resisters League in Philadelphia, which shows that he definitely was not a hawk or in favor of military people winning. And how did he happen to select a person from the New York Times? Well, he gave them to Neil Sheehan. Neil Sheehan is the man who did the hatchet job on Otto Otepka for the New York Times. Neil Sheehan in New York just a couple of years ago was praising communist governments and saying that there is need for communist governments. Neil Sheehan and Ellsberg were friends over in Saigon together and had lunch together, and this is how they got to know each other. And so the papers were passed. And where did Ellsberg get his experience? Well, he was with the Rand Corporation, he was with the Defense Department, selected by Adam Yarmolinsky for a post there, as most of the other key whiz kids and commissars were, selected and recommended by Adam Yarmolinsky. And after having left the Pentagon with the CIA under a State Department cover, he went to Saigon, and from there to the Institute, or the Center for International Studies at MIT, which is a financed CIA operation. Under Eisenhower, millions of dollars was given to set up this think tank, and when people were eased out of the State Department, when they were cleaning house there through Scott McCloud and the others, they were eased directly into this center. And who else came from the center? Walt Rostow. And I've just brought out that Walt Rostow is still receiving, at this point, secret confidential documents as to the world situation as a result of Nixon's arrangement. And Rostow came from the same center, and Ellsberg, and of course, those of you who have read any of my material know that Harold Isaacs, a member of the Soviet espionage group in the Sergei spy ring, uncovered and disclosed by General Charles Willoughby, and he is one of the key people up in that Cambridge Center at MIT. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just one or two words. I would urge you to try to get as many people as you can to read American Opinion and the Review of the News, not because I or the rest of our fellow authors are writing for it, but it is an opportunity for people to get the truth that they cannot get from any other area. our papers are not bringing us the truth, or there'd be no need for us to be here or for you to be here. I wrote a book called Treason is the Reason, and in it I mentioned the subversive and pro-communist and security risk background of over 200 people in government. In the front of the book, I mentioned that I have additional information on every person in this book. And I waited for somebody to come to get that information, but nobody came. Now you could say, well, they didn't know about it. But the State Department bought 6 copies from me, and the CIA bought 6 copies, and the FBI bought 6 copies, but nobody ever came for any additional information. So I came to the conclusion that these people must be untouchables. You can't get rid of them. And so I spent another year or so after the Nixon administration, and I updated it, and I have all the same people, these same subversives and security risks who've been in government for 10, 15, and 20 years, and are still there now. They've been exposed by congressional committees. They're still there, and I call them the untouchables, and I have them in my 2 books, Untouchables 1 and 2. And Almighty God someday may be able to enlighten us as to in each individual case how it was possible for these people, enemies of our country, to remain in high positions in our government and to subvert them. If the American press were telling the truth, our people would know about this. It is only magazines like American Opinion, Review of the News, that are giving you the truth, and this is why we want you to get as many other people as possible to learn the truth. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Frank.